Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankara Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurte Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarva Vide Namaha. So the author is examining the structure or the genesis or the anatomy of this expression janami or janati. Devdatto janati, aham janami. Where does this come from? Who says this? Chidatmaneva aupadiko janatyadi shabda prayoga sambhavati. This is possible only for the Chidatma, for the consciousness, for the self. Meaning that the one who says janami, I know, is Chidatma, is conscious being, the self. How? Aupadikaha. Because of the upadhi of the buddhi and chidabhasa. In all these verses, the teacher is trying to establish the need for chidabhasa, which he has introduced. And how, by not taking into account chidabhasa, it is not possible to explain anything. The vyavahara, janami, also cannot be explained, and also other people's philosophies also cannot properly be explained without taking into account the chidabhasa. So the answer of the Vedanta is Chidatmani eva. It is Atma, Chidatma, that alone says janami. He is only conscious being. But how can he say aupadikaha? Because of the upadhi of the buddhi along with chidabhasa, the chidatma says janami. So, iti abhipretya. So this shabda prayoga sambhavati, then only you can explain janati or janami shabda prayoga when it belongs only to the Atma, but because of the upadhi of buddhi and chidabhasa. So, Adarasha Mukha Samanyam Mukhascheshtam Himanavaihi. Mukhasya Pratibimbo hi Mukhakarena Drishyate. So, just as when you see a reflection in the mirror, the recognition is this is my face. It's not my reflection. This is my face. Yatra tyasyaabhastayur avivekatah janati iti kriyam sarva loko bhakti svabhavatah. Similarly, wherever you see the reflection, the mirror in which you see the reflection, avivekatah, because of the aviveka or non-discrimination, janati. Therefore, this prayoga, shabda janati, is on account of the aviveka, non-discrimination between Atma and then Chidabhasa and Buddhi. Buddhe kartrutvam adhyasya janati jnayati uchyate. You can say that kartrutvam, the sense of doership, belongs to Buddhi, because that is where the change is. Buddhi is unconscious by nature, therefore Buddhi cannot be primarily called knower. And Jnana, the conscious being, the self is conscious being, therefore he can be called knower. But is changeless, therefore Atma also can be called knower in primary sense. Buddhi is unconscious, therefore Buddhi also can be called knower in primary sense. Adhyasya. So knowerness of the Buddhi is superimposed upon Atma, just as even though what you see is reflection in the mirror, you superimpose and you say, this is my face. Similarly also, what is happening to Buddhi is superimposed upon the self, and then Atma says, Janami. Tata Chaitanyam Adhyasya Jnatvam Buddhe. And Buddhi also is called knower, because superimposing consciousness upon Buddhi, Buddhi is called knower, and superimposing the knowerness of Buddhi upon Atma, Atma is also called knower. Swarupam chatmano nityam jnanam nityam jyotishrute yatah na buddhya kriyeta sana natmana nyena vasada. Is this consciousness Atma created? As the Vaisheshikas would want to believe that consciousness is not the inherent nature of Atma. When Atma, just as in deep sleep, when Atma comes in contact with the mind, then consciousness is created from nowhere. So, there are these opinions that consciousness in Atma is created. Swarupam chatmano jnanam, jnanam, consciousness, swarupa of the Atma. Atma can never be devoid of consciousness. Even in deep sleep also, Atma cannot be devoid of consciousness. There may not be manifestation of consciousness because of absence of mind, but Atma is consciousness. Nityam jyoti shruteryatah, because Shruti says Nityam jyoti. Atma is the eternal light of consciousness. The Buddhya creates, so you cannot say that Buddhi has created consciousness and Atma by coming in contact with Atma. Nor does Atma create consciousness because it was there. Now Atma anyena vasa, not by anybody else or anything else is consciousness created. It is the very swarupam of Atma. Deham pratyo mood yadvat janati iti chalaukikaha. So how does adhyasa happen? What's the mechanism of adhyasa? Deham pratyaya yadvat laukikaha. So just as laukikaha, the common people look upon body as a self, as Atma. And janati, therefore for them, Atma, body alone is Atma, so body alone knows. Vadanti jnana kartritvam tatat buddhes tathatmanah. Similarly also because of superimposition. of Atmatvam, selfness upon the body, they say Devadattoham, whereas Devadatta is the nature of body. Tadvat buddhe tatha atma jnana kartritvam. Kartritvam happens to be in buddhi, superimposed upon Atma, and consciousness is an Atma, superimposed upon buddhi, but this mutual superimposition, Atmana jnana kartritvam vadanti, they say that I know, the self knows, and buddhi knows both. Buddhi is called jnana kartri because of borrowed consciousness from Atma. Atma is called jnana karta because of borrowed changingness from buddhi. बौद्धेस्तु प्रत्ययैरेवं क्रियमाणस्य चिन्निभैः मोहिताः क्रियते ज्ञानमित्याहुस्तार्किकाः जनाः. We haven't done that. Okay. So coming to verse 668, ननु तार्किकाः ज्ञानस्य उत्पत्तिविनाशौ पश्यन्तः. तार्किकाः वैशेषिकाः ज्ञानस्य उत्पत्तिविनाशौ पश्यन्तः. They say that there is no jnanam, no consciousness in Atma in the deep sleep state. When Atma is devoid of contact with the mind, there is no consciousness. When Atma wakes up, then there is the association with mind, therefore the consciousness emerges. So jnanasya utpatti. When the Atma wakes up, because of the contact with mind, the jnanam, consciousness is created. In deep sleep state, when the association is not there, the consciousness gets destroyed. Utpatti vinashu. Consciousness in Atma has utpatti. Creation, when it comes in contact with the mind, vinasha, destruction, when it is devoid of the contact with the mind. See, everybody tries to explain our experiences in their own way. The waking experience, dream experience, deep sleep experience. So these experiences must be explained. Your principle must be such as to explain life. And therefore different people have come with different models to try to explain our experiences. It's our experience that we are not conscious in deep sleep state, that we are conscious when we wake up. So there is no consciousness in deep sleep, and there is consciousness when you wake up. What's the difference? There is no mind in deep sleep, and there is mind when you wake up. So mind is, by Anvaya Vyatireka, is instrumental in creating consciousness in Atma by its association, and by the disappearance of consciousness in Atma by the disassociation. Jnanam Atmana Kriyate Ityahu. Therefore, the jnanam is created by Atma when it comes in contact with the mind. Tat katham nityam jnanam Atma Swarupam idyuktam. When this jnanam or consciousness Atma is created, it emerges and then merges, appears and disappears. How can you say it is Swarupam? Swarupam is that which is ever there. Katham nitya jnana Swarupam, Atma Swarupam. How do you say that? Jnana or consciousness is the eternal nature of Atma. Ityataha, when that question arises, aha. So verse 60 it says, Bauddhaistu pratyayairevam kriyamanaischa chinnibhaihi mohitah kriyate jnanam ityahustarkika janaha. So something emerges and merges. Something appears and disappears. What appears? Bauddhaihi pratyayi. The pratyaya, the various modes of the buddhi, the various vrittis of the buddhis that arise in waking and disappear, merge in the deep sleep state. So there is something that emerges when you wake up and merges when you go to sleep. It's true. But what is Bauddhaihi pratyayi? Is pratyaya, the thoughts of the mind that arise and thoughts of the mind that merge. Mohit chinnivai, but then those thoughts are always accompanied with the reflection of consciousness. They are enlivened by consciousness. Therefore, those thoughts also appear to be conscious because of the reflection of consciousness. So they think that consciousness is the nature of those thoughts. Not recognizing that what you see is the reflection. What you see is the reflection of consciousness in thoughts. A reflection is taken to my face, so also that these thoughts are taken to be conscious entities. So thoughts arise, they think consciousness arises. Thoughts merge, consciousness merges. Chinnivaihi pratyayi. The pratyayas, the various vrittis that emerge, Chinniva, each one of them is illumined by chit or consciousness. Therefore, they all appear conscious. Mohitaha, so not recognizing that the consciousness appearing in this pratyaya, the vrittis, is reflected consciousness, not inherent consciousness. Jnanam kriyate, therefore they say that it is vritti that is created. They say jnanam kriyate, the consciousness is created. Iti tarkikaha janaha ahuhu. That's what. So we should know where they are committing error also. We cannot refute them unless we know where they are coming from and what error they are committing. So the Tika says, evam. Purvokta, evam means what? Evam comes from the verse, evam. Purvokta prakarena buddhyoho anyon atma buddhyoho anyonyadhyasat. Evam in this manner means what? Purvokta prakarena. By the prakara, the method that is shown in the earlier one. Atma buddhyoho anyonyadhyasat. Anyonyadhyasa, mutual superimposition, Atma buddhyoho, between Atma and the Buddhi. Consciousness of Atma superimposed on Buddhi, and Kartritva of the Buddhi superimposed on Atma. That's not the point here. Point is that the consciousness of Atma is superimposed upon the thoughts, and thoughts are taken to be conscious. Chinnivaihi. So thoughts appear to be conscious because of chinnivaihi. Those appear conscious. Chit chhayapatya chit eva bhasmanahi. So the thoughts also appear to be conscious because of the reflection of consciousness in them. Bauddhaihi pratyahi. Buddhi prabhava bauddhaihi, meaning buddhi prabhava. So emerging from buddhi, modification of buddhi. So thought is the modification of mind or modification of buddhi. Kriyamanahi pratyayahi. So pratyayas are created. What is created, what emerges, pratyaya, the thoughts. But a thought is necessarily accompanied with the reflection of consciousness. So thought also appears to be conscious. So they are confused and they think consciousness is created. Pratyayi vritti vishay. Here pratyaya means vritti vishay, specific vrittis or thoughts. Mohitaha. Moha means aviveka. So not recognizing, not being able to distinguish between where the consciousness belongs and where the vritti belongs. So lumping them together. Tarkika janaha jnanam kriyate, meaning jayate iti ahu. So they said that jnana is created or born. Ahu vadanti. So what is the cause for this confusion? Tesham buddhi atma aviveka eva aparadha. So what is aparadha? What is the offense that they have committed? Buddhi atma aviveka. Inability to distinguish between buddhi and atma. That's the aparadha. Meaning, that is a fault. Natu jnanam kriyate. Not that consciousness is created. It is the thoughts of the buddhi that are created, and they always arise with the reflection of consciousness. So thoughts are taken to be conscious entities, and therefore they are consciousness, and therefore consciousness arises. If what they say is true, if consciousness arises and merges, consciousness also is therefore impermanent. Tatha sati, if what they say is true, pratyaya utpatti vinashayo asakshikataya, then who makes a note of the pratyaya, the thought has arisen, the thought has merged, there must be a witness. If consciousness also arises and merges, then who is the witness of the arising and merging of the consciousness? Asakshikataya aprasidh prasangat. Then there will be no witness, because consciousness is witness. If consciousness emerges and merges, there is nobody to note that. Therefore, you can't even say consciousness emerges, because there is no consciousness to witness that. So if consciousness emerges, who is the witness of that emerging consciousness? The consciousness is not there to the witness of that. So, therefore, if consciousness merges and emerges, your contention that emerges, that there is no witness, that means that itself cannot be established. Without witness, no phenomenon can be established to be there. Continuing, yasmat evam vicharyamane pramana siddha kautasasya atmanah na vikaritvam pramanikam. Evam vicharyamane, when we just contemplate or deliberate in this manner, atmana pramana siddha kautasasya atmanah, that kautastham, the changelessness of the atma is pramana siddham, is that what is established by Upanishad and which is supported by the reasoning. Na vikaritvam pramanikam. So kautastham is pramanikam, vikaritvam is no pramanikam. Changelessness of the Atma is what Upanishad says, and this vikaritvam, that Atma undergoes change, is not that which can be supported by any pramana. Neither by the Upanishad nor by the reasoning. Yasmacha jnanam atmasvarupa samanat nityameva na kenapa kriyate. And because jnana or consciousness is the essential nature of Atma, essential nature is never created. Even fire does not create heat, it is hot. So Atma does not create consciousness, it is conscious. So Swarupam is something that is not created by anybody. It's just there. So consciousness, being the essential nature of Atma, cannot be created. Otherwise, there was some time when Atma was not conscious, then it's not Swarupam. Yasmacha buddhi samsargam vina atmana na jnatrutam upalabhyate. Also, because jnatrutam, the knownness of the Atma, we do not find sushupta. So unless buddhi is there, so when these two entities are together, buddhi and Atma, only when they are together, that we recognize or that we find kartrutvam in Atma. Not when buddhi is not there. Sushuptau adarsanat. In Sushupti, when buddhi is not there, there is no kartrutvam in Atma. The kartrutvam in Atma is found to be there only when buddhi is there. Buddhischa na atmana prasajñatvadi akara upalabhyate. And buddhi cannot be recognized separate from Atma. To recognize existence of buddhi must be illumined by Atma. So buddhi is never apart from Atma. And therefore, buddhi cannot be independently recognized as kartri. The knower. Buddhi cannot be independently recognized as knower. It is always recognized as knower in presence of Atma. Because without Atma, nothing can be recognized anyway. Therefore, Buddhischa na Atmana Kritak Jnatvatvadi Akara Upalabhyate. So, Jnata, Karti, Jnatri, Kartri, etc., Buddhi cannot be recognized independent of Atma. Buddhi cannot be seen to be Jnatri, Kartri, independent of Atma. Tasmat Atma Buddhi Tatstha Abhasanam Avivekat. Therefore, there is this confusion of lumping together Atma and Buddhi and the reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa. Yatha prasiddhame vyavaharikam. Therefore, the vyavahara janami, janati, karomi, all of this happens because these three entities are lumped together. Atma, which imparts consciousness, and Buddhi, that imparts the change, and the reflection that enables Buddhi to change or recognize the change. And so, in fact, all this discussion is to justify the need for reflected Chidabhasa. Apparently, that seems to be a concept that is introduced by the author, Chidabhasa. And therefore, author has to reason with variety of views and explain how no view can be explained without the inclusion of Chidabhasa. Or, on account of not taking account of Chidabhasa, other views are faulty. So, Janatyadi Vyapadesha Upapadyate. You can explain Janati only when these three entities are involved. Atma, consciousness, Buddhi, the unconscious intellect, and the Chidabhasa, the reflection of consciousness and Buddhi. Because Atma is Paramadika Satta. Janati cannot be there in Atma. Buddhi is Vyavaharika Satta. Janati can be there in Buddhi, but Buddhi is unconscious. Somehow Buddhi should become conscious, and that is by reflected consciousness, Buddhi becomes conscious. Therefore, Janati is possible in Buddhi, but not independently Buddhi, with Chidabhasa. And the Chidabhasa can be only when the Chit is there. That's how you see in Panchadashi also. The Jivatma is the Paramatma is there, and Ajnanam is, or the Chidabhasa also is there, and Ahamvritti also is there, and combination of all of these is called Jivatma. So, Vyavahara can be explained when you take all of these into account, and all of these three must be present. Na Paramartha Mukhyam Anyan Alambanamasti iti Prakritam Upasamharati. Na Paramartha Mukhyam Anyat Alambanamasti. In reality, there is no Mukhyam Alambanam, there is no Alambana of Janati. There is no entity that is Janati, knows in primary sense. Atma Janati because of this Buddhi and consciousness reflected. Buddhi Janati because of the Atma and reflection. Chidabhasa Janati because of the Buddhi, and so Janati can be applied to anything, provided other two factors also are taken into account. Otherwise, no entity in primary sense can be called Jana. Buddhi cannot be called Janati, Atma cannot be called Janati. Of course, Chidabhasa alone cannot be called Janati. And therefore, these three entities, Atma, Buddhi and Chidabhasa, in combination, are responsible for the Vyavahara called Janati. Iti prakritam upasamharati. So this is what author wanted to establish in all these verses. Now it's being concluded here. Tasmat. Tasmat jnabhasa buddhinam avivekat pravartitaha janati ityadi shabdascha प्रत्ययो या च तत्स्मृतिः तस्मात् ज्ञ आभास बुद्धिना ज्ञ means आत्मा आभास चिदाभास बुद्धि the reflecting medium avivekat on account of not being able to distinguish these three from each other pravartitaha janati इत्यादि शब्दाः. Therefore, this janati, karoti, all these shabdas are pravartitaha. All of them take place because of these three. So, jana ityadi shabdascha pratyayacha tasmrutihi. So, the word janati, pratyaya, the thought corresponding to that word, smriti, and the memory of that, all of this is possible when you take into account these three factors. And so the Tika says, Janati ityadi shabdascha. Word Janati. Tat anantarabhavi tad vishaya. Ghatam Janati. Then the object of knowledge. Pratyascha, the cognition. Janati. Yacha tat samskaraja smritihi. And later on you remember that part because the impression of the part left in the mind. Sa charitraya artha. These three, Jna, Abhasa, Buddhinam, Avivekat. Jna, Abhasa, Buddhinam, Avivekat, Pravartitaha. Therefore this Vyavahara Janati. And even the memory of that part, etc., which you knew in the past, all of these Vyavahara is possible when you take into account these three entities, Atma, Buddhi and Chidabhasa. So, Jna, Jna, Abhasa, Buddhinam. So, Jna, Abhasa, Buddhina, Aviveka Mula, Sarva Vyavahara. Entire Vyavahara has its root, Mula, in Aviveka. The non-discrimination, non-separation of what? Jna, Abhasa and Buddhi. So, inability to distinguish between, among these three, all these words or Vyavahara comes. No Paramarthika. Not Paramarthika. Not, there's no real Janati. It's most amazing, you know. Janati you cannot trace to any entity. You cannot say Atma Janati, Buddhi Janati, Chidabhasa Janati, you can't say. So you combine all the three and lump them together. You can't combine them really. But they're different satta. Atma enjoys Paramadika satta. And Buddhi enjoys the Vyavaharika satta. But they cannot be in the same locus. And therefore the combination is possible between two entities that enjoy the same locus, which is not the case here. Therefore adhyasa. Even Sannidhi itself is not enough adhyasa. So that call it adhyasa, aviveka, non-discrimination. Sarva Vyavahara. So all that is why Vyavahara is, you can't trace that's why the reality you can't trace. You cannot explain the simple Vyavahara Janati. There is no entity which can primarily say Janami. Vyavahara is still there. How Mithyatva is there? So Sarva Vyavahara Aviveka Mulaha. Whenever I say Janami, Aviveka is involved among not distinguishing these three from each other. Na Parmarthika. So no Vyavahara is in reality there. There at some level, a Vyavaharic level, not in reality you can't trace Jnana. Who is it? You cannot arrive at. So Kaha Jnana, you can't arrive at it. Uktamartham Drishtantena Spashtayati. Adarshayati. So says the verse 70. Adarshanvidayitvam Chayaya asyate mukhe Buddhi dharmanukaritvam Jnabhasasya tatheshyate. Chaya adarsh anuvidayitvam. The chaya, the reflection, always follows anuvidayitvam, is controlled by the reflecting medium, the mirror. So the reflection is true to the reflecting medium, controlled by reflecting medium. Asyate, but no adhyasyate. How is asyate? So adhyasyate mukhe. And that is superimposed upon the face, and then you say, this is my face. Look at the reflection and this is my face. So, even though the reflection is controlled by the mirror, the reflecting medium, is not true to the face. The reflection is true to the mirror. But as long as the mirror is clear and straight, etc., then I say, this is my face. Adhyasyate mukhe. Therefore, the reflection is superimposed upon the face, and I call it my face. This was already given, so it just brought to our attention again. Buddhi dharmanukaritvam jnabhasasya tatheshyate. So jna abhasa, chidabhasa. Chidabhasa also similarly follows the dictates of the buddhi, the reflecting medium, and that is superimposed upon the self, and you can, this is my face, or I know. The knowerness of the buddhi is superimposed upon Atma, I know. So says the Tika, Chayayaha Mukhabhasasya Yat Adarsh Anuvidayitvam. That Chaya means Mukhabhasa, the reflection of the face. Yet Adarsh Anuvidayitvam. So that which is determined by the mirror. The nature of the reflection in the mirror is determined by the mirror. Tan mukhi asyate adhyasyate. But then that is superimposed upon the face, and I call it my face. Yatha, just as. So that is Shesha, you add one yatha there, just as. Meaning that first line is the example, illustration. Then tatha is also, that tatha is there in the second line, tatha ishyate. Tatha adhyastasya chidavasasya buddhi dharmanukaritvam. Similarly, so that was the reflection in the mirror. Here it is chidavasa and buddhi. So buddhi is in place of mirror, chidavasa is in place of the reflection. Adhyastasya chidavasasya. So chidavasa, that is superimposed upon the face or Atma, is buddhi dharmanukaritvam. It is the nature of chidavasa is determined by buddhi. So there is kartrutva in buddhi. Chidavasa also will have kartrutva, etc. Kanye atmani adhyasyate. So therefore it is ishyate. That is, it is superimposed upon the Atma. Just as the reflection is superimposed on the face, Chidavasa is superimposed on Atma. And that's how the Vyavahara, Janami or Janadi comes. Yasmadevam Chidavasa Avivikta Buddhi. Yasmat, since, evam in this manner, Chidavasa Avivikta Buddhi. There is no separation now of Viveka between Chidavasa and Buddhi, just as we do not separate, distinguish between the reflection and the mirror. They are also taken to one entity. So also Chidavasa and Buddhi are not distinguished from each other. Tasmat tat parinameshu grahakatva pratibhasiddhi. Therefore, tat parinameshu buddhi parinameshu. So buddhi reflects the consciousness. So buddhi parinama. The vritti of the buddhi also will reflect consciousness. So grahakatva pratibhasa siddhi. Therefore, the vritti is called grahaka, the drashta. Grahya and grahaka. Grahya, that which is perceived. Grahaka, the perceiver. So buddhi becomes perceiver. Buddhi vritti becomes perceiver because of the reflected consciousness. So you can explain this whole phenomenon of perception. So janati etc. explained. How also you should explain the phenomenon or experience of perception? That is a perceiver. So perceiver also is because of the nature of the buddhi and the chidavasa. Therefore, this buddhi takes the form of perceiver, and because of chidavasa, then buddhi gains the capacity to perceive because of the reflected consciousness. So grahakatva pratibhasa siddhi. That one vritti is called grahaka or drashta. Drashta is the modification of buddhi. But wherever that modification is, there is reflected consciousness. So therefore drashta also becomes conscious. And that's how drashta or grahaka is established. Siddhi, meaning that you can arrive at the explanation or existence of grahaka, the perceiver, when you take into account the reflection of consciousness in buddhi. So grahaka or the perceiver is a mode of mind, is buddhi vritti. But because of reflected consciousness, it is able to perform that function of perceiver. So coming to verse 71, buddhestu pratyayas tasmat atma bhasena dipitaha grahaka iva bhasante dahanti volmukadayah. Remember, buddhi vritti is unconscious by nature. So it cannot be grahaka or perceiver in primary sense. In primary sense, only consciousness can be grahaka. Buddhi is unconscious. But because buddhi receives the reflection of consciousness, therefore buddhi gains a designation of perceiver. So buddhestu pratyaya tasmat atma bhasana. So pratyaya, the various vrittis of the buddhi, are illumined by the reflection of consciousness. Not by consciousness, by reflection of consciousness. Consciousness directly cannot illumine the buddhi because consciousness enjoys the paramadika satta and buddhi enjoys vyavahara. That is why this whole idea of reflection, that somehow consciousness that enjoys paramadika satta should come down to vyavaharika satta. Sun that is all the way there should come down here to illumine this water. And that's how the reflection. So also buddhi, which is paramadika, somehow should come down to the vyavaharika level of the consciousness, is paramadika, should come down to the level of buddhi Vyavaharika, that is how the reflection is thought of. So therefore, बुद्धेस्तु प्रत्ययः तस्मात् आत्माभासेन दीपितः. So pratyayah, various modes of the buddhi, are all dipitaha, illuminated by atmabhasa, the reflection of consciousness, not consciousness. Consciousness directly cannot illuminate anything. So consciousness must get reflected in the mind, and mind enjoying reflection of consciousness, then eyes, and then the objects. It is true that consciousness ultimately illumines everything, but through the agency of mind and sense organs. Tasmat tat parinameshu grahakatva pratipasya. Therefore, in buddhi parinama, grahaka or the perceiver is also a mode of the mind, but also receives reflection of consciousness. Therefore, it negates the designation of the perceiver. Grahakaya bhasante. Therefore, all these modes of the mind, buddhi, they appear as perceivers. Dahantiva ulmukadaya. This ulmuka or the fire brand. Dahanti, what burns is fire. But you say, water has burned me, the fire brand has burned me. So what in fact perceive is consciousness, but we say that the buddhi perceives. Nigada vyakhyatam padyam. So this padya does not need any explanation. Evam आभास विविक्त पदार्थ स्वरूप अज्ञानात् यथा तार्किकाणां व्यामोहः. So how did Tarkikas get deluded in believing that consciousness emerges and merges? Because they do not realize that buddhi is emerging and emerging, and they identify that consciousness. Because there is some reason for that. How come Tarkikas got confused? Because buddhi contains a reflection of consciousness, and that is confused with consciousness. So what arises is reflection of consciousness with arising of the buddhi. And Tarkikas, not being able to distinguish between the reflection and consciousness, think that consciousness emerges and consciousness merges. Evam abhasa vivikta padartha swarupa ajnanat. And therefore, the padartha, which is consciousness, different from abhasa. So, ajnanat. Since Nayayikas, Tarkikas do not know there is consciousness different from, so what you are perceiving reflected consciousness. There is consciousness which is distinct from the reflected consciousness that they do not know. So reflected consciousness itself is taken as consciousness. And therefore they think consciousness emerges and merges. So padartha swarupa ajnanat yatha tarkikanam vyamoha. How Tarkikas were totally deluded. Jnanam kriyateti, that they said jnanam emerges or arises or is created. Tatha now we come to Bauddhanam api. Buddhi vitrikto grahako nasti na Buddha. Buddhas go a step further. Even Nayayikas also thought that consciousness is the nature of buddhi. That buddhi becomes conscious and unconscious. Or Atma becomes conscious because of buddhi and unconscious. Buddhas don't accept an Atma. For them, buddhi is the Atma. So for them, buddhi is ultimate reality. So Bauddhanavi, buddhi vitrikto grahako nasti. They do not accept a self or consciousness other than buddhi, which is real perceiver, because perceiver must be a conscious entity. Vyamoha eva. Therefore, there is no perceiver or illuminator of the buddhi. Buddhi is self-illumined. For the Buddhas, they call Buddhas because they take buddhi to be the ultimate reality and self-illumining. So it illumines itself, it illumines everything else. So buddhi is the swaprakasha, not Atma. So swayameva iti, next verse is स्वयमेवावभास्यन्ते ग्राहका स्वयमेव च इत्येवं ग्राहकास्तित्वं प्रतिषेधन्ति सौगताः. ग्राहकाः स्वयमेव अवभास्यन्ते. So grahakaha means the modes of the buddhi, they shine on their own. They are self-effulgent. स्वयमेव च प्रत्ययाः इति शेषः. स्वयमेव च प्रत्ययाः अभासन्ते. So grahakaha means perceivers, or that's the buddhi. Swayameva avabhasyante. That buddhi alone is grahaka, perceiver, and it doesn't require consciousness to illumine that, it is self-illumined. Ityevam grahakastitvam pratishedanti savugataha. By saying that the buddhi alone is the perceiver and it is self-effulgent, they deny the existence of Atma that illumines buddhi. That buddhi does not. So, grahaka swayameva avabhasyante. Buddhi alone shines on its own. Buddhi alone is a perceiver. So, there is nobody that illumines the buddhi. So, they do not need the consciousness to illumine the buddhi because buddhi itself is self-shining. Iti grahakastitvam pratishedanti saugataha. That's how saugataha, the Buddhas, pratishedanti, they deny the existence of grahaka, or here the consciousness. The grahaka, all this should come from them, This terminology is Bauddhic term is used here to explain. When they use a term, then that's here used to explain how they arrive at that term and what the real meaning should be. यदि एवं प्रत्ययानां ग्राहकम अन्यम स्थिरम अनादृत्य. In this manner, pratyayanaam anyam sthiram grahakam anadritya. That pratyayas are grahaka all right, but sthir grahaka. Pratyayas are perceivers all right, but then they arise and they subside. So there must be a permanent grahaka also that illumines them. Anadritya, they do not respect that, meaning ignoring that. Anyam sthiram grahakam anadritya. That there is a grahaka, or there is an illuminator of this buddhi. So other than buddhi, there is an illuminator, anadritya, and that is disregarded. So everybody tries to explain as simply as they can. So why do I have to add the variables? If buddhi itself can be explained as self-effulgent, you don't need Atma. Pratyameva grahi grahakakaram bauddhaha manyante. So buddhi alone becomes a perceiver and perceived. For Bauddhas, buddhi alone is what projects the whole universe. And therefore buddhi alone is perceiver and also perceived, subject and object. Tari tanmadasya anubhav anusaritvat. But therefore, they arrive at this opinion or based on the experience. Because consciousness you don't experience, you follow? All you experience is buddhi. And so you recognize that buddhi is that ultimate reality. And therefore the universe that is perceived also is created of buddhi. So buddhi alone takes the form of the subject and object. And that is anubhava anusaritvam, that is following the anubhava. Because consciousness does not come in anubhava at all. That there is consciousness is only established by pramanam, by Upanishad. Consciousness cannot be arrived at by any reasoning, etc. Then you provide reasoning that it must be so. But if you independently begin your inquiry, you arrive at the buddhi. That's the ultimate thing. So, tanmatasya anubhava anusaritvat. That Bauddha mata is in keeping with the anubhava. Avasa anabhyupagame katham te nirakartavyaha. So how do you refute these Bauddhas? There is no image, then there is no reflection. If consciousness is not accepted, then the reflection of consciousness also is not accepted. And they don't need it because buddhi itself is self-effulgent, so they don't need any other agent to illumine the buddhi. But for us, buddhi is not self-effulgent. So you need another agent to illumine buddhi. That agent is consciousness. But that is Paramatika Satta. Therefore, consciousness must get reflected in buddhi to illumine the buddhi. That's how buddhi, whenever you see buddhi, always shines as enlivened, not recognizing that is due to reflection of consciousness. So buddhi is experienced as like the Tarkikas, etc. Therefore, they think buddhi itself is consciousness, is self-conscious. So, abhasa anubhyapagame, therefore, they don't accept the need for abhasa or reflection. Kathante nirakartavyaha, meaning that Bauddhas are able to explain the experience without taking into account the chidabhasa. They can explain the experience. So how do you refute them? Katham te nirakartavyaha iti. How do you then refute these Bauddhas who are able to explain the experience without taking into account the chidabhasa? Iti ashayana. With that intention, swayutyam, that there are Vedantins who also don't accept chidabhasa. They are not Bauddhas, they accept consciousness, but chidabhasa they don't accept. Swayutyam pruchati. Therefore the author says, teacher says, all right, how will you refute these Bauddhas who don't accept the chidabhasa? And you also don't accept. So this is the question asked by the Siddhanti to somebody, to another Vedantin who does not agree in all the aspects. Yadyevam nanya dushyaste kim tad varanamucyatam bhava bhav hi yetesham yo nanya-grāhyau satayadi. Yadi evam na anya drushyaste pratyaya. All the buddhi pratyayas are anya drushya. They are not illumined by another one, another consciousness. They are conscious themselves. Kim tad varanamucyatam. So how do you refute this view? That you do not require consciousness other than buddhi, that buddhi itself is conscious, self-conscious. If that opinion is there, so there is no need to accept consciousness, nor reflection of consciousness, and they can explain experiences. So how will you refute them? We ask them, you tell me, because you don't also accept chidabhasa. So you tell me, how will you refute them? So let us see. Te pratyaya na anyadushaha anyena sakshina nityasiddhena na grāhyayati. So Buddha say that these pratyayas, meaning these thoughts of the buddhi, are not illumined by anything other than the buddhi. Anyena sakshina nityasiddhena, sakshi other than them, which is ever existent, that it is not that sakshi that illumines them. Even Bauddhaha vadanti, because the pratyayas themselves are illuminating themselves, so you don't need another illuminator. This is the Buddha say. Tan matavaranam kim asti taducyatam. Then you tell us, please, how will you refute that mata? Iti ukte swayutyah pratyaha. Then this was told to swayutyam. Swayutyah pratyaha, then the swayutya says, this fellow says. Yukta means the half Vedantin, or sort of part Vedantin. Bhava bhavite. So now they refute Bauddhas. Who? Swayutya. So Vedantin, who does not accept Chidavasa, he thinks that you can refute Bauddhas without accepting Chidavasa. So you don't accept Chidavasa, how will you refute them? So he refutes. Bhava bhavite shamyav na nyagrahyav satayadi. He says, bhava. So buddhi pratyaya is there in the waking and dream. Abhava, not the deep sleep state, and there must be an illuminator of the bhava and abhava, existence and non-existence of buddhi. Then only you know that in deep sleep there is no buddhi. Na anyagrahyav satayadi. This fellow says, if they are not determined by someone other than buddhi, so look at the tika. Tesham pratyayanamev bhava utpatti vinashav sata swatasiddhena sakshina anyena na grahyav yadyapi. So, the pratyayanam bhava, the thoughts of the buddhi, bhava in waking and dream, abhava in deep sleep. So, if you don't accept a witness other than them, utpatti vinashav sata swatasiddhena sakshina anyena na grahyav. If they are not perceived by, illumined by someone, a sakshi other than them, yadvi tathapi yasmin pratyayana bhava sohamiti pratyabhijnan balat tesham grahaka anvai sthayatma siddhati. So all right, then also tathapi. So nakara should swasit swat sakshina anyena grahyam yadyapi. So this should be certainly illumined by sakshi other than them. So tathapi yasmin pratyayanam bhava soham. And still, that in which the bhava of the pratyas is there, that I am. So this fellow says, you still arrive at the existence of consciousness other than the pratyas as a witness of the pratyas, and that I am in the pratyabhijnana balat. So by this pratyabhijna, tesham grahaka anvai sthayatma siddhati. So by pratyabhijna, a sthayatma must be accepted. Because when these bhava are not there, then also I am there to know the bhava, and I am there to know the bhava. So the one that knows, that's what I am. So, iti pratyabhijna bala, that's how I recognize myself, that the one who knew the abhava is the one who knows the bhava now. When I wake up in the morning, yes, so what is it? No. Prata swapsamiti prabodha samay yah pratyabhijnayate. So that I was the one who was sleeping is the one who has woken up, that's pratyabhijna. So I was the one who was witness of abhava, is now the one that is witness of bhava. By pratyabhijna I established the existence of the self, which is witness of bhava and abhava. Sthayatma siddhati. So this fellow says sthayatma can be proven by the recognition that I was the one who knew the abhava, and that is I who knew the bhava. So you don't, therefore Buddhas can be refuted easily by the pratyabhijna. That pratyabhijna shows that there was the witness of abhava also, is the same witness of the bhava. But you don't need chidavasa. This fellow says that by accepting that consciousness as the sakshi of the pratyas, you can explain and refute the Buddhas. To refute the Buddhas, you don't need chidavasa. Kim abhasa kalpanaya. Buddhas can be refuted simply by accepting the sthayi nitya atma, that is sakshi, of abhava and bhava, which sakshi is established by pratyabhijna. Then you don't need the chidavasa. Kim abhasa kalpanaya. So what more do you gain? What more advantage is there of accepting chidavasa? So author is himself creating all this. So Buddha Pratyaya is taken, Swayuthya is taken, who accepts the consciousness as a witness of the Pratyas, but not Chidabhasa. But then they do not realize how consciousness can become witness of Chidabhasa because they have different sattas. So consciousness cannot become witness other than Chidabhasa. That they don't understand. So they say consciousness remains. So kim abhasa kalpanaya. Why do you need to also add one Chidabhasa? If you can explain the experience without that, why do you add that variable? That's what Swayuthya says. Okay, we'll continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Shanti Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Shanti 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 Guru